dollar because bad love them homeland. We'll never give it up to another nation. This a we we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This a we da fear. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This a me. My name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. Don't tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because patriots.
Sunday Review, Sister YaYa, Sister Emily, Brother Roger, and Brother Akko having a conversation about unionism in the region, the importance of controlling your narrative, shared values, ethical leadership. In this segment, I want to give anyone an open mic opportunity. If there's anything on my want to talk about specifically that we have not talked about so far, that I feel matter at this time, especially when you have, at least I believe, such low active union members. And I don't know what are the numbers, but I know we have more workers in Belize, as I'm sure is the same in the region and the United States, who are not registered members of unions or active, even if they're paid in dues, not active in a unionism. So, what I want to share, anything I want to say right now, this is our opportunity. We have another 19 minutes before the show over.
Just to take up on that point, the union and the level of union concentration in the United States was its highest probably in the 1950s, close to the low 30 something percent. Right now it's hovering around 10%, higher in the public sector and lower in the private sector. So in the public sector, you might climb up to 12 to 15%, and in the public sector, in the private sector, down to below 10. So it averages somewhere around 10, 11% union density is called. In Trinidad, the union density has been declining as well. So this is a trend I believe that the record shows is fairly global. But it is worse and worse, has been worse and worsening. Now, a point on this is that I blame the labor movement in large part for that, for failing to build organizations that were closely identified with the communities that they originated from and were supposed to serve. Instead, the mentality that the unions train workers in is that they're somehow special, because they earn higher wages and they have rights that unorganized workers don't have. Workers in the service sector, for instance, who may not be in unions, who may not have benefits package to talk about, health and sick time and vacation time and so on and so forth. And instead of putting an emphasis on fighting on behalf of those workers over the past 30, 40 years. The unions tended to go off on their own and to leave the vast majority of working people to their own devices. And now the chickens have come home to roost. Now you pay the price for not having cared about people. Now, you have to beg them to care about you. I don't blame people for that. I blame the unions. And I know it. I've operated at very high levels in union leadership in the United States, on the AFL-CIO and in many of its affiliates, and in the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists. I was on the executive council there too. And I say without hesitation that the unions have been largely responsible for this failure. They do not train workers in real solidarity. They do not train workers to view themselves as having shared values and common values with the communities and so forth, except when it is a useful soundbite for PR purposes. But they don't conduct educational programs, and they do not invest union resources in fighting to advance the common good and community interests. I mean, you do get sparks here and there, where they look for some community agreement if you bill in a hospital or doing some kind of some kind of construction or some activity that where government funds are going, they might seek a community agreement to to do some apprenticeship programs or some hire some local youth and so on and so forth. But that is few and far between. It's not the lifeblood of the unions, and we pay for that now. So the density has declined, continues to decline, and it is a very troubling situation.
It's a mouthful, Brother Roger, and it's one of the things where I observe distinctly different about the Belize Communication Workers for Justice is that as they are leading, they are teaching. And that makes one big difference when everyday people understand what that issue. It really gives you confidence. I feel good that you could reason because you learned something we never know before. So before this group form, a lot of we never know about severance. A lot of we still don't know. This is our learning process. When I ask people when I don't work, if you work for private or public sector, for the most part, they tell about social security and pension. A lot of we never know what the severance. And around this issue, it rather quiet, you know. One lot of employers not say nothing because the truth is they're in a violation. Our number of employees never know that something, even though there's severance, some of the people in dead and gone, all on the suffer, and we never even know something when there's severance. And that the Labor Act give Belizeans that right, and that's why we have to holler for the Labor Minister, Karim Musa, and the Labor Commissioner, I forget her name, Roselle, I think. Say what I need, Emily, I have to write it down.
Stella Dominguez Pat.
Yes, we have to holler for them because that for their responsibility as labor officers, according to the Labor Act, for make sure that they look after the interests of Belizean workers. And I can't say this enough. So big thanks for that. Are one of the things where I really admire about this group, that they lead by example. And remember, they're talented, they're intelligent. We make them different again. Like when they go protest, anybody go to a mic front of it and then could talk from position and knowledge. That are not usually the case when you say protest. That usually somebody with a leadership that then do the talking. So, Brother Akko, Sister Emily, anything you want to add before we go?
Okay. One of the things that and Brother Roger touched on it just now, opportunism in the labor movement. You didn't frame it that way, but that's what opportunism in the labor movement, in which unions separate workers, by those who are higher paid and those who are lesser paid. And but another interesting point that must be made is that the state as we know it is a tool of the employer and capitalist class. And that whenever you have any struggle against a company, understand that you are fighting the state. Now, the state is supposed to represent the people, but the state as is constructed in the Caribbean is not about the people, okay? The state is an entity that evolved out of the whole colonial construct to maintain, as Hobadu used to say, maintain, it's called about continuity and adjustment. So understand that the state is not on your side. So even though the law is there, right, in terms of the theoretical framework, when it comes to the practical application, in terms of it's benefiting the worker or the citizen, it is not there. The employer class always, and the capitalist class always has the upper hand of the benefit, you know, and that is something you have to understand. So it is not a political point, but understand that the state as an entity does not support the worker and the masses, right? Now, I am rereading a lot of old books that I read in the 1970s, and I picked up this book recently called "The State and the Revolution" by V.I. Lenin, who was the first leader of the Soviet Union. And I want to just read a bit because he wrote this 100 years ago, and it shows you how nothing has changed, right? I'll just read one part of it, right? He said, I'll go read a paragraph. He's talking about the state. He said, and the unions, he said, against this opportunism, okay, it breeds in the workers and their representatives of the better paid workers who lose touch with the rank and file. These people get along very well under capitalism and sell their birthright for a mess of pottage. They renounce their role, right, of leaders of the people against the bourgeoisie, right? Basically saying, because they get better pay, they seem to think that they are better than the ordinary worker. And this is what is bred by the unions, and this is how the state operates to maintain those kinds of divisions among workers. So, when we go back to what Thomas Sankara said, imperialism is a bad student. It repeats the same things over and over in different forms. So here Lenin is in the 1900s is talking about what the state is doing in terms of the workers' movement. And here it is again. We are seeing this same attitude in 2026. And the last one I want to make about that, what Brother Roger said about the absence of the reduction of workers joining unions, because one, unions have been discredited, but there was also an assault under this new neoliberal dispensation articulated by Margaret Thatcher and supported by Ronald Reagan, that the unions were a prime target of these two particular leaders, because they wanted to create an economic order which people call neoliberalism, but as someone said, whether you call it neoliberalism, whatever, it is still capitalism. It just sometimes renews itself and gives itself different labels, but fundamentally it is anti-worker and exploitative. But a primary focus of the capitalist order, what people call neoliberalism, under Reagan and Thatcher, was an assault on trade unions. And if you look at, from that period, you could distinctly see the decline of unions and the dispensation of workers. In fact, one of Thatcher's famous statements was, there is no society, there are only individuals. So she said, look, there's nothing to unite around people and community, you are individuals. And unfortunately, some of our union leaders bought into that philosophy, which comes back again to the point Brother Roger made about what are your values. You cannot pursue individualistic values, because individualism is a destructive tendency. Yes, there is a role for individuals in particular circumstances, but if we have to move forward as a unit, an organization or society, there must be cooperation, solidarity, and collective action and responsibility.
Big thanks, Brother Echo. We have another 5 minutes for final thoughts. Anything you want to add, Sister Emily?
So yeah, I was listening and I said, let me think back. What is going on with Belize? Because the gentleman gave us so much history about trade unions. So what I do know is that we have a labor force of about 160,000 to 190,000 in Belize. That's about 56% of our population. And I'm a data scientist kind of thing. So I said, let me research and find out how much of that is organized. It's 4%, around 4%, 6,000 workers. Out of every 25 workers in Belize, one is organized. And to bring it back to the point that the brothers have made, because I am living it right now and experiencing it, this is this entire thing and the reason BCWJ came about is because if we are not within the sector or in the workplace where these trade unions exist, we are left out here to fend for ourselves. And it's true, it's a true, we are living it in 2026. The majority of the Belizean workforce is unorganized, and we are left to defend our rights. And you made a point about us educating about severance, and it's one of the tools we use for people to be able to understand and to connect with us. But we also wanted to deliver the message that this win is not just about the farmer worker of BTL, it is about all the workers of Belize, all the workers of Caribbean, all the workers in CARICOM, because the CCJ ruled it, and I want to utilize an exact quote from the CCJ that explain how our labor laws what they were. He said that when we are looking at this piece of legislation, we have to apply a purposive, theological, generous, and pragmatic approach in interpreting Section 183 of the Labor Act, taken within its social context. And he concluded that both the retirees and the voluntary retirees fell within the categories of employees entitled to severance. So just that one statement goes to it proves to us that our labor laws were written because of all this colonial history we have and all of this that has happened to workers, where we are the ones that are trampled on. We are the ones that are to disadvantage. We saw within the context of this fight and these 15 people that initiated this taking BTL to the courts. It is said that, and this is what we heard, that BTL spent upwards of $20 million to fight these 15 workers. And when I speak with them, they tell me about their struggles to scrape $500 to pay their attorney to take it to the next level. And they got exhausted, and we didn't know that they were fighting this amount of money. They were barely putting together $500 to be able to go to the CCJ, while BTL was using millions of dollars to fight them. It's such a
unjust, unequal.
Yes. And right now that we have now that we are saying you need to pay all of us, they're saying we're gonna put a statute of limitation on you, and here you all are statute bar 6 years, but because we feel like it, we will pay you just the severance, and if you want anything else, take us to court again. That's crazy. And BTL is owned by the people of Belize, and so the government of Belize needs to help us. And I want to finish off by saying that we have a big case in front of us with the ICJ. And we expect that Guatemala will respect, because I believe our territories will remain intact. The ICJ will rule that they must leave us alone. Belize is sovereign, a sovereign nation. But we have to watch what our behavior is, because if our highest court has said, this is what you all are supposed to be doing. They say they are mischievous, they speak from a social justice. It's one of the most, I always like to say, it's one of the most beautiful rulings that help the workers of today. And we don't want to respect it. What can we expect when the ICJ says Guatemala leave Belize alone? What can we expect? We're not respecting our own. We're acting in this way. We're disregarding what our highest court has ruled. And I try to say that because it's scary for me as a Belizean. It's scary for me to sit and be watching this. I am defending, or we are defending together, our seniors, but we have also this ICJ thing that has hung over our heads for so long, and we want it resolved. We want them to tell Guatemala, leave us alone, but we're not respecting in our own country. We're not respecting
our sovereign laws. We're not respecting. So much less if a foreign country. Well, the state and our politicians have never defended our sovereignty. It's only the people, and this is what is happening with this U.S. thing with Jamaica sending the Cuban doctors away. We do not respect our sovereignty, but I don't want to comment. I know, Brother Roger.
I'm done. That's it for me. Yeah.
Even
we don't have much time. Yeah.
Even a more relevant example to note is the conflict in the Essequibo region between Venezuela and Guyana. Um, that was decided in Guyana's favor so far, but by a court that had no representation from Latin America. The court was represented more heavily by Europeans, British and Americans, and so forth, on the ICJ. So it is very interesting to see how international geopolitics work its way into these decisions. Um, the reason why they went against Venezuela was undoubtedly because of the hostility between the UK, Canada, and the US against the Chavez government and now the Maduro government. And I believe that that weighed heavily in the ICJ's decision. So you got to watch that in terms of if the US decide that whatever works for them and the UK decide whatever works for them, they will sway the court in that direction. These decisions are not based upon fairness and
Law.
justice and the law. This is geopolitics at work here.
And
So
power. Don't forget power.
right. I will just advise being careful. One final point I will make though. For unions to be healthy and ethical, your union organizers and social justice activists, you have to be concerned not only about your immediate community, but about all commonly situated and people with a shared interests, right? So that you have to constantly balance between attending to your internal and your immediate community and with the larger community. So, for instance, unions. I mean, that is actually when unions were their strongest was when they were intimately bound up with the communities, both in Trinidad and in the U.S. You had these immigrant associations in the U.S. and you had from all the way going back to the water riots in 1919 in Trinidad, you had close ties between the movement of workers and the fight over community issues, issues that were affecting the community. So it's important if you're going to be ethical. Again, this is where it comes down to shared values and so forth. It is important that you'll be fighting over the issues that affect the communities, you come out from, and that you maintain a unbreakable bound a bond, a bind between your union members and the surrounding community. If to the extent you do that, then you're unbreakable. The extent you don't do that, then you will be broken, or you'll be isolated. You can't go to the public at the last minute and say, "Look, help us." Quite frankly, 4% of the workforce in Belize that's unionized probably may making 2 or 3 times more than what the ununionized workers are making. So when you go to them and say, "Well, I need to get a few more dollars in my pocket," right? Then the 96% of the workforce say, "Well, what about us? You don't care. Nobody's talking about our level of wages until you need some help." You see the problem?
Yes, Brother Roger. Big thanks.
So you have to from the talking ethics and values, you have to combine your internal struggles with figuring out how to connect and maintain deep connections with the community and how to make that organic to who you are and how you operate as a union.
Big thanks, Brother Roger. We're way past closing shop time. You got how many, Brother Aka, final thoughts?
No, I think it was a very important discussion. And just to support what Brother Roger said, whatever organizations we have, unions, you have to make a connection with the community because the workers are part of the community, and we always have to keep that in mind.
Big thanks again, our co-host, Brother Aka Mutota, revolutionary out of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Our guest today, that is Sister Emily Turner. Can you believe BTL are the only company she worked for in her entire life? And the spokesperson for former BTL employees, holding BTL accountable for paying severance based on the Labor Act and the recent Caribbean Court of Justice ruling on November 5th, 2025. The Belize Communication Workers for Justice in the Kogoda Facebook page. Listen and learn and ask questions. Big respect for your ethical leadership, Sister Emily. Younger than me, but I tell her the first Belizean leader where I could say, yes, sister. As a woman, respect is due for the way they lead and the group collectively working in their best interest. And this again impact all Belizean workers, all Caribbean workers will use the Caribbean Court of Justice as the highest court. And then my brother Roger to start to say half a reading that I thought about him. Former president of the Transport Workers Union, TWU, Local 100 in New York City from January 2001 to December 2009. Big respect, like Brother Akka said. This has been a needed reasoning that may have to happen, and I thank Brother Akka for had the insight in 2025 for say, YaYa. We need to create one space so we as people living in the Caribbean, knowledgeable people, lived experience, talk about real issues behind the headlines, because Sunday Review, that news review talk show. So again, thanks Sister Emily Turner, Brother Roger Toussaint, and Brother Akka Mutota at the security booth at XTV. I believe that with Breddah Shane Flowers here at XTV, the Master Chief Operator Technical Director, Harlan Wagner, downstairs on the second floor of Creme Radio. We have Brother Larry Guerrero, I believe, known as Larry G. The show repeat at 5:30 today on XTV local channel. You could go to XTV Belize, XTV Facebook, XTV Belize Facebook at any time to listen to any of our programming. Share the link, because we have on duty as listeners and viewers to become knowledgeable, think for ourselves, ask questions, listen, and try our best to stay humble and lead with kindness. Until next Sunday, remember say, the International Women's Day today. March is recognized as International Women's Month. Every day that Women's Day, Women's Month. Okay, get that straight. But until next Sunday, I got nice people want to save the people. Solidarity forever.
All people who love them country bad, love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. This a we we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This a we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This a me name is Pupa. Believe me, come from